Hello, folks, and welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. All right, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The presidential election is going to be about pocketbook issues, kitchen table issues. It's going to be about the economy, stupid. The Biden economy has barely grown in the last 5 quarters. The leading indicators are pointing to a recession in the next 12 months. Inflation skyrocketed to 9%. It has come down some, but today's GDP report shows still around 5%, which is way too high. Interest rates have soared. Even mortgage rates are now back over 7%. And while it's true the jobs market is holding in, the more important fact is real wages for middle-class families have fallen 7% during Joe Biden's presidency. It's the soft underbelly of the economy. But they are underwater after inflation. It is a killer. Now, Art Laffer said many times that the winner of the coming election is going to be that person that shows he or she can be proper stewards of a prosperous economy. Kellyanne Conway similarly has told us many times that woke, as important as it may be, will be far less important than a pro-growth economic agenda. Speaking of which, here's my pal and colleague Laura Ingraham on her show last night, giving her final thought. Take a listen.
Both DeSantis and Trump should remember that Reagan won in 1980, hammering Carter's economy, and Clinton won in 92, hammering Bush's economy. As tempting and fun as the other issues are to bat around, the path to victory is offering credible solutions to what worries voters most.
Well, good for Laura. Now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis formally announced his presidential campaign last night on Twitter. Unfortunately, technical problems undermined his announcement. I guess Twitter Spaces crashed and he lost over half his original audience. You know, I'm going to blame my hero for that, Elon Musk. He should have done something. Somebody should have figured out there'd be a risk. But I don't think it was wise for an audio-only announcement anyway. However, if you saw the excellent interview last evening on Fox News by Trey Gowdy with Governor DeSantis, you would have been rewarded with a very intelligent issues discussion by the Florida governor. Without question, he is a capable guy and a genuine conservative. He talked about American decline and why it is not inevitable. He seeks to restore normalcy and the culture of losing, and he's quite confident that he will be victorious in the primaries and the general election. Now, he was more at ease talking about woke cultural issues than he was about anything else. He labeled it cultural Marxism. He seeks to end what he calls the sexualization of children. On the other hand, he would fire FBI Director Chris Wray on day one as president. He favors remain in Mexico and building a wall and curbing phony asylum requests. He's for a negotiated settlement in the Ukraine. Now, Trey Gowdy asked him about the economy. And here, Mr. DeSantis was a little sketchy. He did say he would expand energy production to include fossil fuels. Of course, he opposes excess federal spending. He had no particular specifics on that or the big entitlements. He didn't mention taxes nor regulations, nor did he use the phrase economic growth or prosperity. However, he had a superb answer on inflation concerning the Federal Reserve. He's a big Fed critic. He said the role of the central bank is to foster a stable dollar, not to be an economic central planner. Now, I like that very much, and I totally agree with him there. So the governor needs to build out a better economic vision. I'd say for him that's going to be priority number one. And I think right now the growing Republican presidential field has much more work to do to convince the electorate that one of them, or the GOP itself, can be good economic prosperity stewards. You know, I thought former President Trump did a very good job at the CNN town hall debate with his drill baby drill. And he did emphasize his achievements on tax cuts and deregulation to spur growth. But in the spirit of tough love, Mr. Trump needs to articulate a federal spending budget policy and, to be honest, a little more on protecting King Dollar. Actually, the best growth advocate right now in the GOP, in my opinion, is House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who's fighting so hard to get a good budget deal and raise the debt ceiling. McCarthy talks about promoting growth and reducing inflation all the time, and the principle of a balanced budget. So, save America, peace through strength, grow the economy. And that is my take.